We don't own our media anymore. Music is streamed to our phones. Shows are streamed to our TVs. Games are streamed through Steam. Streamed games. Steamed games. At any moment, these companies can just yank it from our greasy hands and we'll have nothing to show for it but some empty Cheeto-dusted fingers and our pants down. Libraries are kind of like streaming. I mean, you rent things from them and you don't really own it, but hey, at least it's free. Whoa, sorry about that. After Netflix kicked us off all of the accounts that we were, sharing passwords with, like we turned 25 and we can't use our parents' health insurance anymore, they have the audacity to raise the subscription price $3. If you think about it, that's actually kind of insane. I needed an alternative. The library might be that alternative. In order to experience the library to the fullest, I did what any sane normie would do. For 1 month, I can only consume media that came from a library. No books I own. No movies I own. No streaming crap. Only library resources. Why do this? Well, shh. Growing up, I always enjoyed libraries. I used to go to one in my hometown pretty frequently. I remember I checked out my first Goosebumps book there, Go Eat Worms. I was pretty terrified at the idea of reading Goosebumps, so I wanted to start with a pretty easy one. Also, I wanted to rent it too because I thought that, owning evil, having it sit on your shelf like Annabelle or something, that's not usually a good idea. No, sir, you send that back to the library. Then when I was in high school, I, had an SAT prep tutored me in the basement floor of the library, like it was like the educational dungeon. In college, I loved studying in the libraries, because it was a place of quiet when back at the dorm room, who knows what kind of insane shenanigans are happening back there. I can't study there. And it was really important because, it was free. That's what makes libraries such wonderful third places. They're free resources. After college, though, I didn't really find myself going to libraries very much. I started getting some adult money, and then buying my own stuff, which meant that I was getting into some adult debt. Let's go. High fives all around. You can high five the screen. It's okay. You could do it. I haven't been to the library in a long time, and I really wonder now what the role of the library is in the digital age. Since I posted my only consuming media that could fit on the stinky shelf video, a lot of you guys had suggested to go to the library because it is a great free alternative. I thought that was a really good idea, and I hadn't been to the library since I moved to Portland, so you know what? I thought I'd check it out. So I had to take my first step into that journey, which was getting a library card. On the first day of my journey, I started with a small library. It's really small. It's like a little bit bigger than a coffee shop. I don't think I've ever seen a library this small before, but you gotta start somewhere. I walked in from the cold, rainy streets of Portland and found that it was pretty packed in there. And it was actually quite toasty, too. I went to the front desk and a really kind man helped walk me through getting my first library card. It was super easy and quick, and then beam, bop, boom, 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 bop, bam. He came out with my library card. It's been a while since I've been to the library, so I asked him how many things I could check out. And he said I could check out up to 100 things at one time.
Up to 150 items. Wow. That's pretty generous.
Okay. That is crazy. Isn't that theft at that point? So then I also asked him, what's the situation with late fees? He said there are no late fees. Like, they stopped doing that. Now, if something's past due, they just auto-renew it for you. Double theft. That blew my mind that they amended the classic late fee rule. Like, what other resource allows you to rent up to 100 things and doesn't charge you late fees? Just so you can learn, just so you can culture yourself completely for free. That's incredible. He also gave me a little pamphlet that showed me what streaming services the library offers. Libby, Hoopla, and Canopy, which I'll talk about later. Okay. Library haul time. The library was pretty small, so the selection was limited. My goal was to get some things from different categories that I probably wouldn't have spent time with otherwise. I found this book on the history of the universe. It's been a while since I learned some basic facts about how the world works. I'm too busy learning how much I'm supposed to pay in taxes to the government. But sometimes it's nice to go back to the basics. I wormed my way over to the manga section, and this manga called Ping Pong caught my eye. It was pretty big and seemed kind of like a vibe that I, wouldn't typically reach for, so I thought it'd be fun to check out. Before this experiment, I was in the middle of rereading The Fellowship of the Ring for the first time in a decade. I tried looking for it here, but they didn't have it, so I had to put it on hold. But that's the kind of gamble you're gonna make at the library. It just means that you're gonna have to exercise patience. Then to round things out, I grabbed a couple cookbooks so I could look at the pictures of food and get, meal ideas. I grabbed a few CDs, a couple that I'm pretty familiar with, and then a couple I'm not so familiar with. And then one I've never really spent time with before, Undisclosed Pleasures by Joy Division. After a pretty solid round of picks, I checked them out and went on my way. As my week unfolded, I started getting that familiar wave of digital media consumption itchiness that happens when it's removed from your life like a crypto rug pull. Symptoms include the constant need to be stimulated by something, humming melodies and singing songs just to fill the void, checking my phone super frequently like a psychopath, like I'm waiting for a text from myself saying I could stop the experiment now. Doing this kind of experiment again really reminded me how much of a force silence is, and how our modern lives are constantly at war with it. The unfortunate result of this is that we're so used to avoiding silence that when it comes our way, it makes us extremely uncomfortable. The minute there's a pause in stimulation, we're just trying to jam more of that back into our system stat. But silence is where we can reflect, where we can rest, where we can grow. If your mind is always stirred up like a snow globe, you're never gonna let the important things going on within you start to come to the surface. Or you're never gonna let the little town in the snow globe get a break from the crappy weather. I started reading that science book, which was a lot of fun. I love kids' books because they take these really big and complex subjects and really distill them into a way that's really accessible. How come they don't have books like this that explain how to do your taxes? Somebody please write this book. I started reading that ping pong manga, and I gotta say, didn't really know what to expect from a manga called Ping Pong, but it kicked off more compelling than I anticipated. It follows these two high school kids that are really talented at ping pong. One is an absolute prodigy, but doesn't really care to pursue it. But for the second kid, very talented, but not as good as the first player, and his dream is to be a famous ponger. Pretty good stuff. But yeah, that was the majority of the stuff I was reading. The CDs were good. I found some orchestral and choral music, and that was nice to put on when I was, looking through the cookbooks at the food. Very relaxing. The reading was going fine, but then I became pretty frustrated in a new way. Oh, new variant of frustration, everybody. What's it gonna be? What's the new frustration? Lists. Let me explain. I love me some lists. Top 10 lists, reading lists, lists of things I've been meaning to watch, play, or eat, or whatever. Because there's so much good stuff out there to experience, I gotta make a list to keep me on track and make sure that my time is not wasted. Gotta finish up Fellowship of the Ring, and then after that, I gotta read Golden Sun, and then after that, I don't know, Dungeon Crawler Carl seems pretty sick. I don't have time to waste. I gotta enlist to my optimized consumption list. What I didn't realize until now is that this experiment takes my lists and wipes its dirty, unwashed booty with it. Just wipes it all up. No crumbs left. In a weird way, it felt like I was put on timeout from the stuff I'd rather be experiencing. Felt like my mom caught me playing too much video games, so instead I have to read a book on puberty or something. My optimized consumption list suggests that I want to protect my time by only consuming things that matter to me a lot. Is that a bad thing? No, but the fact that removing the list and probably most of the items on the list made me this frustrated was kind of revealing. It made it clear to me how important it was for me to curate my own experience. That is a privilege. A lot of people don't have that. So to release control in this regard and just kind of leave myself available to the resources around me, in this case, whatever's available at the library, was pretty humbling. It's been really tough not reading the books I wanted to. So please feel bad for me. 1 like equals 1 feels bad, man. I'd really appreciate it. Moving into the second week, the experiment started to develop in ways that I didn't really anticipate. Because I decided to do this experiment, that also kind of meant my wife had to go through it as well. Guilty by association. You see, our recent evenings have been really a pattern of just getting home, making dinner, and then throwing something on the TV while we eat dinner. Usually ends up with us vegging on the couch or whatever. Once again, this experiment kind of took those evenings and wiped its mud-pied anus with it. We pretty much stopped watching TV for the first week and a half, which if that's been your routine lately, sucks. Now that we stopped watching TV, we were kind of forced to just sit at the table and eat meals together and talk. It quickly became clear how many important and good conversations we had been missing out on because we would usually just be vegging in front of the TV. Getting time back for our relationship was actually such a great unintended consequence. TV within itself is not a bad thing, but if it's getting in the way of your ability to spend quality time with your significant other, then yeah, it might be. Who knew? Talking to your spouse or partner is pretty cool. But we can't talk to each other forever, so I started looking through the library's streaming services and tried to find something we could watch together. Like I mentioned earlier, there are 3 streaming services that I'm pretty sure most libraries should offer, and they are Libby, Hoopla, and Canopy. Libby is pretty great because it's essentially an extension of the digital side of the library. It's mainly got audiobooks, but it's also got digital books as well. So you can search up something, put it on hold, and then borrow it when it's available. You can download it and stream it right through the Libby app, so it's a pretty goated app. But there is a good chance you're probably gonna have to wait a little while for more popular or new items. So it's kind of perfect to get those audiobooks maybe that's, several places down your list, and you don't mind waiting for a little bit. It might also happen that you'll just get it early too. I've already had that happen to me a couple times. I looked through the Hoopla selection, and it's all right. There were a ton of BBC shows that I've never heard about, probably something that your aunt and uncle are watching. I really only found like a handful of movies I'd be down to watch, including Truman Show, Fargo, Perks of Being a Wallflower, Good Will Hunting. Yeah, I did not find very many shows that I recognize at all. They did, however, have like a decent anime collection. I think the first couple seasons of JoJo's and some other classics, so worth checking out. Canopy is probably my favorite streaming site in terms of selection. They kind of have like a Criterion collection kind of vibe to their selections. It seems like they have a lot of critically acclaimed modern movies, some classics, and documentaries as well. A couple that I was just personally interested in watching were Perfect Days, Immaculate, Weird, Donnie Darko, and Hundreds of Beavers. Hundreds of Beavers is what really caught my eye. I heard from some YouTubers that this was like one of the funniest movies to come out in 2024. Apparently, it's a black and white comedy with no dialogue. Times are tough this month, so I thought it was the perfect opportunity to check out something new that I probably wouldn't have normally. And I am so glad I did, because holy guacamole, this was one of the funniest movies I have seen in years. It's about this successful Applejack brewer named Gene Kayak who loses his whole operation due to some woodland creatures. And now he's just left to survive in the wilderness. That's all I'm gonna say. The less you know, the better. If you're at all a fan of laughing, of chuckling, of hijinks, of overall just having a good time, then please, I beg you gotta see this movie. My wife and I had a wonderful time checking this movie out. It's really likely that I wouldn't have made an effort for us to watch this movie if I didn't just put aside my list and give myself the space and time to just explore, to just try something new with what was available. I was honestly so stoked to happen upon such a gem. And speaking of gems, ping pong is really starting to pick up. Want to know 2 things that I did not expect to feel reading a manga called Ping Pong? Heartbreak and horniness for more ping pong. Dude, it's such a cool sport. Even though it's kind of a small or cute version of tennis, it actually really differentiates itself in the level of skill and strategy that you have to perform in such a small form factor. And the sheer level of reaction speed is so impressive. I really don't think that there are that many sports that if you shrunk it down, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids style, you would find a new level of nuance and complexity, at least to the same level of ping pong. This week, I was really starting to appreciate some things that weren't on my typical lists. If I didn't put my optimized consumption list aside, I really wouldn't have given myself the time and space to explore and just find something fun, to take a chance on a movie like Hundreds of Beavers or a manga like Ping Pong. This made me think that exploration might be a bit of a dying practice. On many apps, there's probably going to be like an explore or discovery page, but I think we can agree that we're not really exploring anything. We're just choosing between things that the app's algorithm thinks that we would like. Even if you open up an app for the first time, within a couple clicks and a few scrolls, like that app's got you sorted like the sorting hat put you in Slytherin. You creep. So in reality, the act of us exploring, at least in some online spaces, is not real. Sure, you can search up things, but in terms of coming across things that you wouldn't typically search for, any and all apps are likely going to try to figure you out and then start handing you stuff it thinks you'll like. Now, of course, there's a practical side to this because there is so much content out there. Like naturally, you got to sort through it and channel it somehow. But on the other side, curation is a natural byproduct of the app wanting to keep you engaged the longest because it wants your attention. Not necessarily to hand you something valuable or beneficial, but to keep you engaged longer. The longer they can keep you on the apps, the bigger their pockets get. Mr. Krabs style. Real exploration dies this way. Even if it makes you think that you're exploring, you're actually subtly being guided in a direction that it chooses for you. While if you go into a physical store, you're able to just explore whatever it has to offer you. It's like the algorithm is standing in front of a bookshelf and is like, hey, try this book, you'll like this. Maybe. What about that one? How about this one? I'm pretty sure you'll like this one based on how many times you've Google searched how to create your own fursona. What? Real exploration would be seeing the whole shelf, parsing through what you like and dislike, and maybe happening upon something unexpected. 3 times this week, I came across media that I would not have cared to give time to unless it was on one of my lists. Because of my self-imposed lists and the tight curation of online spaces, I rarely find myself actually exploring something new. For me, bookstores and now the library are places where I can truly experience exploration. It's not to say that you'll like everything you find, but that's a risk you gotta take, and I'm really happy I did. All right. Time for haul number 2.
Well, I'm heading to the Portland Central Library right now in downtown, and I gotta be honest with you, I cannot remember the last time that I've been this stoked out of my mind to go to the library, but that's the kind of week this has been.
This week I wanted to up my library game. Started with a small library with minimal selection, and now we're moving up to the real deal, the Portland Central Library. I walked in, and similar to the others, it was like pretty warm in here. Why are we cranking up the heat in this piece? Are you cold? I'm not cold. I walked in here with the puffer. I took a moment to walk around to the different rooms because it is a beautiful building. Then I did some browsing. I was looking for stuff to round out my library collection. I wanted some picture books. I don't know why, but I gravitated towards American paintings. Been a while since I looked at a book with paintings, so I thought it'd be kind of cool to do. And then I noticed right across from the paintings, they had the photography shelf. I don't know much about photography, so I thought it'd be cool to get something from there too. And that's when I thought that it would be cool to get a book of American paintings and American photography and do a little compare and contrast. So I went to the nearest librarian and asked if they had any books like that just for American photography. And she did. She found me one. It found it exactly what I needed. She was super helpful. I combed through the CDs and I found a classic, Rush. Needed a little Tom Sawyer action in my schedule, so I grabbed that. I also found this Elliott Smith record, which is another classic that I haven't gotten around to, so I thought, perfect time to try it. Give me that. I was starting to get the itch for a casual TV watching experience, so I found Portlandia Season 5, my city, and then I also found Season 3 of Seinfeld. Tried and true. Then luckily during this week, I got a notification that Lord of the Rings finally came back in stock, so I checked that out. Felt good to pick that back up and start reading it again. Since my consumption of media has been pretty minimal this month, getting a whole new haul of things was really exciting. I was actually so excited for every new piece that I checked out. It just made me realize that when we have such easy access to just like all kinds of stuff, really doesn't make you appreciate these things. And so, yeah, this coming week, I was really excited. Felt like I was able to just go on a whole shopping spree of new stuff. All in all, second week was wrapping up pretty nice. Until week 3, I was starting to get pretty concerned that I might quit YouTube and start playing ping pong. It's the coolest thing you never knew you needed until you started reading Ping Pong, which is a manga about 2 high school kids who crush it at ping pong. Did you know there's a grip called the pinhold grip? You hold it like this. How the frick do you get power out of that? I don't know. Maybe by being a freaking demigod of physics? See these little nubs? They're called pips, you uncultured swine. Short pips is called pips out. Allows you to have more control over the ball when you're playing with your nips out. This week, I've thrown away all my previous heroes and replaced them with table tennis players. Zoran Primorac, Jan-Novi Wagner, Wang Tao, George Rushkoff, and of course Ashraf Helmi. I even have a life-size body pillow of Hugo Hoyama at home. I had no idea ping pong was this cool, and somehow this manga with static pictures of art gets across the blisteringly fast-paced paddle-swinging glory. It's a world I've never known until now. I don't know when I'll ever begin my PP journey. Ping pong for short. I don't have time to say the whole thing because I'm trying to train by moving faster, but I know that if I ever want to go to war with the demons of speed and fury, I play ping pong. This week, I was in the groove. During my workday, I was mostly silent, just wholly focused on every task I came across, which really helped me conserve my mental energy because I wasn't distracting myself with podcasts or YouTube videos and the like. When I got back from home, I would often go on a walk and just like listen through a whole album, like Undisclosed Desires or Either Or. It was really cool to just listen through and reflect on my day. And then with my free time in the evenings, I would put on some hide-in and look through the book paintings I had. Then I would probably read a chapter of Lord of the Rings before bed. It's crazy because that first week, I was pretty frustrated, just being a real butt about things, you know? But once I got over the fact that I couldn't engage with all the stuff on my list, it really opened me up to appreciate something new. This is a weird comparison, but it kind of feels like, making friends at summer camp. Did you choose to be around all these people? No. Maybe a couple if you all decide to go together. But what happens? You eat at the cafeteria together, you're cracking jokes, push one of them off the platform into the blob, and suddenly you start making some connections. And then it ends up being really special. That's the kind of feeling I had with my experience engaging with some of this stuff. It's possible I need to focus that kind of time and energy towards making real friends. I'll look into that. That would be worth looking into, but not today. Now, while I've experienced many things from the library by now, I actually haven't really spent a lot of time in the library. Sure, I've browsed around a lot, but it hasn't really been more than like an hour at a time. So by this week, I thought I should really immerse myself in the library space. What's the best way to do this? I don't know. Spend the whole day in the library? Yeah, that should do it.
I am locking myself in the library, and if I never come out, I win $1 million. No, I won't. Really, I'm just gonna be in there from open till close, and please subscribe because we really want to try to get that Mr. Beast budget for the next video. So.
The goal is simple: spend my whole day in the library from open to close, and let my curiosity and boredom lead me to explore the wonders of the library. I started off with getting a lay of the land. As I walked through the various rooms, I scanned the shelves and took note of any books that I wanted to come back and look through. I've always loved how peaceful and quiet the library is. It almost feels like a museum in the way that everybody knows collectively to respect the fact that this is a place to learn and to behold knowledge. Sure, some people are playing League of Legends on the free Wi-Fi, but regardless, this is a place of peace. The first stop that really intrigued me, the zine section. I've never really read zines before, so I was pretty fascinated. It's literature straight from the people. You could put anything in those guys. So what are the people talking about these days? I was flipping through a few to get a feel for them, and then I came across one with this sick octopus artwork. So I flipped through it, and it was a lot of stories of you know what I'm saying? So I kept browsing. I eventually came upon the zine called All This Is Mine. The writer was a woman who tells her story of this cross-country road trip she does with her husband. It was super quaint, really cute, and it was really just a lot of musings of life on the road, making fun roadside attraction stops, and talking about visiting national parks. Love a good road trip story. Next, I stopped at the reference section, the area of the library that has books on libraries. I started to look at some picture books of libraries all over the world and throughout history. This book focused particularly on the architecture of libraries. And I just love that libraries have always been a beacon of architectural design. Knowledge is power, and it should be housed as such. It truly is a symbol of culture. I love what this book said about libraries. Libraries are always built with a socio-political intent. They indicate to the wider world the scholarly ambitions of individuals and organizations, and in the case of public libraries, they can also be a charitable civic gesture. That last part is probably what I've learned the most about libraries in this experiment. Going to libraries in the city really reminded me how underprivileged members of society benefit from libraries. The fact that it has free and good Wi-Fi is a really big deal. So much of our modern lives not only use the internet, but depend on it. Online classes, applying for jobs, navigating health insurance, anything. If you do not have access to the internet, your access to the world is greatly limited. The library also benefits the homeless population as well. I noticed pretty early on how warm the temperature is in the library, which I thought was weird at first, but the more I thought about it, I think it's actually really beneficial to the people out on the street who need a place to warm up. It really frustrates me that cities oftentimes just focus more on moving the homeless population around instead of actually trying to integrate them back into society. It's not to say that it doesn't happen, but it's just really cool to see the library as a place that offers free resources for anybody who needs it and only requires a library card from you. It totally rings true what that book says about the library being a charitable civic gesture. I absolutely believe that now, and I don't know if that's something I really thought about before starting this experiment. After a few hours, I was definitely hitting that bored point. I moved on to look at a picture book of bugs, because bugs are cool. And then I moseyed around, looked at some comic books. I don't know. I didn't really have too much of an agenda at this point. Later, I spent some time reading about health and wellness and even cooking in the bayou. Earlier in the day, I definitely had some focused moments where I really wanted to try to like learn and experience something. And then the last half of the day was pretty freeform. It was really just me wandering around, flipping through something, and then wandering somewhere else. This whole experience kind of reminded me of childhood a bit. Being bored like a child and letting your curiosity drive you is, I think, a bit of a lost art, and one that we shouldn't necessarily grow out of. The importance of boredom is a whole other topic that I won't get into now, but in short, our devices give us the option to never be bored. A boring moment can always be filled by technology. So this experience of wandering around and just letting my interests carry me along, it felt like being a kid again. Probably the kind of thing I was doing when my mom was running an errand next door. But in the final hour of my time at the library, I mustered up the courage to talk to the librarians, the arbiters of silence. I asked if I could film our conversation, but they kind of had some rules against that, so I'm just going to use this stand-in instead. I asked Jeff what his favorite thing about the library was, and he responded with, "The library is a place where anyone from any background can enter and get shelter and resources." I totally agree with that, and I have definitely seen that firsthand. He also mentioned that he loves using the AMH machine, which I still don't know what that means. But apparently it's this big machine that you feed books into, and it sorts them into alphabetical boxes, which you could then go take and restock with. I was like, oh, so this is how they're organizing all the books. I've always wondered that. And he was like, no, this is a new thing. Like, we just got this. And I was like, oh. I talked to Jade and asked if there was something that they wanted everybody to know about the library. They said that on the Multnomah County website, there's a page called My Librarian, where you can essentially get a reading recommendation from them. You can sort through the different librarians and see what they're interested in. And then once you fill out a couple questions, they'll give you a personalized recommendation of what they think you should check out. Pretty sweet. I'm not sure if your local library offers something like this, but it's definitely worth checking out. I'm sorry I couldn't show these conversations, but it was really cool to talk with them and really kind of get the feel for why they're passionate about the library, why they love the library, and why they continue to work there. What I gathered is that the library is a place where anyone from any background can enter and learn, get help, and receive from some really valuable resources, and all for free. Jade also mentioned that a lot of the resources they have, they just give away a lot of good stuff, apparently like earphones, even like cell phones to a certain degree. It truly is a charitable civic gesture, and one that I hope remains prominent in our modern digital culture. Thank you, library. I learned a lot from you. This month was more difficult than the month I spent with the stinky shelf, but also I think it was more rewarding. At the end of the day, I had to let go control of my optimization and curated stuff and just be available to the resources around me and the direction of my own curiosity. In a goofy way, it kind of did feel like taking a vacation. There was no pressure, there was no expectation, and most of all, it was free. Favorite thing I watched? Hundreds of Beavers, okay? I am begging you, you got to watch this movie. Favorite thing I read? Come on, you know. PB. Good old Pazing Pong. It's only a 2-volume manga, but dang, does it have such a good story arc and great character development. In some of those panels of the tournament at the end, it was like transcendental. Makes ping pong feel larger than life. Because it is. My favorite CDs, of course, Undisclosed Desire and Either Or. I was also repping Moving with Pictures a ton. Hit me with that Tom Sawyer. Like I mentioned earlier, it's very likely that I would not have come across this stuff or really give it the time and attention that it deserved if it wasn't for this experiment. The question is, do you need to spend an entire month only consuming media from the library? No, but here's what I would suggest you do if you are interested. No pressure. 1, go to your local library and get a library card. It's a super easy process, and it's your ticket to tons of free media and resources. If you need the Wi-Fi to play League of Legends, they got that as well. If you're like me and you had it up to here with the streaming service nonsense and how expensive it's getting, the library is a great alternative. You might be surprised at what they have. Are they gonna have everything you're looking for? No. But neither are the streaming services unless you get the Disney Hulu bundle and also Max, which has the ESPN bonus, which actually happens to come through your DoorDash subscription. And after that, you're paying about $700 for 800 different streaming services. You know what beats that? Free library card. It's free resources. 2, block out an hour or two just to go to the library and explore. See what they got going on. You might find something unexpected you're interested in, or you might find the next book in the series you've been reading. Take the time to just mosey around and see what sparks your interests. Let your curiosity drive your exploration. It is so cool to just explore and see what you can find without the pressure of buying it. That is a lot of freedom, so you should take advantage of that. And 3, last thing, talk to your librarian and ask them what resources they offer. I know that sometimes there's like events that help educate people on things. There might be something really beneficial for you there. It's free resources. And that secret 4th thing you should do? Like and subscribe. Gotcha! Because I surprised you with it, that means you have to do it, okay? I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. I just enforce them. For real though, thank you so much everyone for taking the time to watch this video. Oh, what? Dang it. I had a lot of fun making it, and let me know if there's some other dumb experiment you'd like me to do. I just might do it. Question corner. Was there a formational thing for you that you rented from the library? Mine was the Go Eat Worms Goosebumps book. That was huge. That got me into horror. And look at me now. One of my favorite horror stories is Hereditary. Anyway, thanks library.